Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we are diving into some important full stack developer interview questions. If you are preparing for an interview or just want to solidify your concepts, stay tuned till the end. So let's start with the basics. What is full stack development? Full stack development means working on both the front end and back end of a web application. The front end is what users see and interact with, the UI, buttons, forms, and overall designs. The backend is the behind the scenes magic, handling data, processing requests, and ensuring everything functions smoothly. A full stack developer is someone who can work on both ends and bridge the gap between them. Okay? So, friends, now let's come to the next question. What technologies are typically used in full stack development? To become a full stack developer, you need to know technologies for both the front end and back end. So, in front end, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and frameworks like React, Angular, or jQuery. And in back end, programming languages like Python, Java, Node.js, PHP, and frameworks like Flask, Django, Spring, and Express.js. And if we talk about databases, you will also need to work with databases like MySQL, PostgreSQL, and MongoDB to store and manage data efficiently. A good full stack developer should be comfortable switching between these technologies based on the project's needs. So the third question is, what is the difference between HTML and CSS? This is one of the most commonly asked interview questions. HTML, hypertext markup language, structures the content of a web page. Think of it as the skeleton that holds everything together. Now CSS, cascading style sheets, is responsible for styling, colors, fonts, layouts, animation, and responsiveness. HTML builds the structure and CSS make it visually appealing. Okay. Now the fourth question we have, explain the concept of responsive web design. Imagine visiting a website on your phone and it looks as good as it does on a laptop. That's responsive web design in action. It ensures website adjust beautifully to different screen sizes using flexible grids. The layout adapts based on the screen size. Second, flexible images. Images resize automatically to fit. Third, CSS media queries. Different styles apply based on screen width. This is a must-have skill for front-end developers as mobile usage is growing every day. Now let's come to the next question. What is the DOM? Okay, the DOM is like a tree representation of your web page. Every element in an HTML document, a button, heading, paragraph, is a node in this tree. JavaScript can interact with the DOM to change the content, style, and structure dynamically. For example, when you click a button and it changes color, that's JavaScript modifying the DOM in real time. Next question is, what's the difference between GET and POST requests? When working with APIs or databases, you will use HTTP requests like GET and POST. GET is used to retrieve data from the server. POST is used to send data to the server to create or update a resource. Think of GET as reading a book and POST as writing in it. Now let's move to the next question. What is a RESTful API? A RESTful API follows the REST means representational state transfer architecture, making communication between the client and the server smooth. It uses standard HTTP methods: GET, fetch data, post, create new data, put, update existing data, delete, remove data. REST APIs are widely used in web applications to connect front-end and back-end seamlessly. Next question is, what is a database and why is it important in web development? A database is where applications store, retrieve, and manage data. For example, when you log into a website, your username and password are fetched from a database. Databases are crucial because they store and organize user data, improve efficiency and scalability, enable dynamic web applications. Popular databases include MySQL, PostgreSQL, and MongoDB. Next question is, What is SQL and what are some common SQL commands? SQL, structured query language, is used to manage and manipulate databases. Some important SQL commands include select, retrieve data, insert, add new records, update, modify existing records, delete, remove records, join, combine data from multiple tables. If you are working with relational databases, SQL is an essential skill. Next is, what is version control and why is it important? Imagine working on a project and you accidentally mess up the code, but you need to go back to an earlier version. That's where version control comes in. Version control systems like Git allow you to track changes to your code, collaborate with teammates easily, revert to previous versions if needed. This is why developers use GitHub, GitLab, and Bitbucket to manage and store their code repositories. Okay. Now let's come to the next question. What is Git and how does it work? Git is a distributed version control system that allows multiple developers to work on a code base simultaneously. It helps track changes, collaborate efficiently, and merge different versions of code without conflicts. Okay. Now let's come to the next question. What is a callback function in JavaScript? A callback function is a function that is passed as an argument to another function and is executed after that function completes its operations. It is commonly used in synchronous programming to handle operations like API request or file reading. Now let's come to the next question. What is the event loop in JavaScript? The event loop is the mechanism in JavaScript that handles asynchronous tasks. It constantly checks the call stack and task queue, ensuring non-blocking execution by pushing completed tasks from the queue to the stack for execution. Now learners, come to the next question. What's the difference between synchronous and asynchronous programming? So let's understand them one by one. Synchronous programming executes tasks sequentially, waiting for each task to complete before moving to the next. And asynchronous programming allows tasks to run independently, meaning some tasks can be completed later while others continue executing. Now let's come to the next question. What is Node.js and why is it used in backend development? So, Node.js is a JavaScript runtime built on Chrome's V8 version that allows developers to run JavaScript on the server side. It is used in backend development for handling input-output operations, building APIs, and creating scalable applications. Next question is, what is Express.js? Express.js is a minimalistic and fast web framework for Node.js. It simplifies the process of building web applications and APIs by providing built-in features like routing, middleware, and request handling. Okay. Now the next question is, what is a promise in JavaScript? A promise represents the eventual completion or failure of a asynchronous operation. It has three states. First one is pending, means initial state not resolved or rejected. Second one is fulfilled, operation completed successfully, and the last rejected, means operation failed. Now let's come to the next question, that is, what is MVC, Model View Controller Architecture? Okay, MVC is a design pattern that separates an application into three components. Okay, model, it handles data and business logic. Second one is view, manages the user interface. Third one is controller, processes user input and updates the model and view. Next question is, what is the difference between front end and back end development? So front end, it focuses on the user interface and user experience using technologies like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, and Angular. While backend, it handles server-side logic, databases, and APIs using languages like Node.js, Python, Java, and PHP. Okay. So learners, we have the next question, that how do you optimize a web page for better performance? Okay. So to optimize a web page, you can do is that minimize HTTP requests. Second, enable caching. Third, optimize images means compress without losing quality. Fourth is minify CSS, JavaScript and HTML. Last, use efficient JavaScript and CSS coding techniques. Okay, friends, next question we have, what is cross browser compatibility and how do you achieve it? Okay, so cross browser compatibility ensure that a web application functions and appears the same across different web browsers. To achieve this, write standard compliant HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Second is use feature detection instead of browser detection. Third one is test on multiple browsers using tools like browser stack and lambda test. Next question is, what is a CDN, content delivery network, and why is it used? A CDN, content delivery network, is a distributed network of servers that delivers web content based on the user's geographic location. So, it reduces latency by serving content from the nearest server. It handles high traffic loads. And the last, it improves website speed and performance. The next question we have, what is authentication and authorization in web development? So friends, let's understand it one by one. So authentication, it confirms who a user is, example, logging in with a user and password. Second is authorization, it determines what a user can do. Example, an admin can access certain features while a regular user cannot. So the next question we have, what is CORS, cross-origin resource sharing? CORS is a security mechanism that allows web pages to make requests to a different domain than the one that served the web page. It is required when making APIs call to different domains and is handled via HTTP headers like access control allow origin. Let's jump to the next question. What is a cookie and how is it used? A cookie is a small piece of data stored in the browser and it is used for session management, keeping user logged in. Second, personalization, storing user preferences. Third one is tracking and analytics, monitoring user behavior. Now let's jump to the next question. What's the difference between HTTP and HTTPS? HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, is standard protocol for data communication. And HTTPS means secure HTTP. It encrypts data using SSL, TLS, making it secure for transaction and sensitive information. Now friends, let's jump to the next question. What is a firewall and why is it important? A firewall is a security system that monitors and controls incoming and outgoing network traffic. It prevents unauthorized access, it protects against cyber attacks, and applies security rules to filter data. Now let's jump to the next question. What is a SQL injection attack and how can you prevent it? SQL injection is a cyber attack where malicious SQL code is inserted into an application database query. Okay. So how to prevent it? Use parameterized queries. Second, validate user input. And third, limit database permissions. Next question we have, what is a NoSQL database and when would you use it? A NoSQL database is a non-relational database that stores data in a flexible format, documents, key value pairs, graphs, etc. Okay. Now, when to use it? Okay. So first one is working with large unstructured data. Second one is needing high scalability, example social media, real-time analytics. Okay. Third, handling distributed data storage. Now friends, let's jump to the next question. What's the difference between a relational and a non-relational database? Okay. So let's understand it in the format of table. The structure of relational database is like table-based fixed schema, while non-relational database like flexible documents key value. Okay. Second feature is query language. In the relational database, it is like SQL, while in non-relational databases, it is like Verise, MongoDB uses JSON-like queries. Okay. If we talk about scalability, then in relational databases, it is vertical scaling, while non-relational databases, it's like horizontal scaling. Okay. So let's talk about some examples. MySQL, PostgreSQL is an example of a relational database, and MongoDB, Cassandra are example of non-relational database. Now let's jump to the next question. What is indexing in a database and why is it important? Indexing is a technique to improve database query performance by creating a structure that allows faster data retrieval. Okay. Now let's talk about some features. First, speeds up research operation. Second, reduces disk input output operations. Third is uses B trees, hashed indexes or full text indexes. Now friends, let's jump to the next question. What is the difference between a primary key and a foreign key? Primary key uniquely identifies each record in a table, while foreign key a field that refers to the primary key of another table, establishing a relation between tables. Okay. Next question is, what is normalization in databases? Normalization is the process of structuring a database to reduce redundancy and improve data integrity. Data is split into smaller related tables, avoid duplicate data storage, follow normal forms 1NF, 2NF, 3NF, etc. Next question is, what is denormalization and when is it used? Denormalization combines tables to improve read performance, reducing the need for complex join. Okay. Now, when to used? So, read heavy applications, example, analytics dashboards. Second, query performance is more critical than storage efficiency. Now, friends, let's jump to the next question. What is a transaction in a database? A transaction is a sequence of database operations that must be executed as a single unit. Okay. It ensures consistency in case of failures. Second, either all operationals succeed or none are applied. Now let's come to the next question. What is ACID in database transactions? ACID properties ensure reliable database transactions. First is atomicity. All operations complete or none do. Second is consistency. Data remains in a valid state before and after transactions. Third is isolation. Transactions don't interfere with each other. Durability. Changes persist even after a failure. Next question is, what is a deadlock in databases and how can it be prevented? A deadlock occurs when two transactions wait for each other to release resources, causing a stall. Okay. So, what are the prevention techniques? Let's understand. First one is lock ordering. Acquire locks in a consistent order. Second one is timeout. Abort transaction that wait too long. Okay. Third one is deadlock detection algorithms. So friends, now let's come to the next question. What is the difference between a thread and a process? So let's understand process. An independent program instance with its own memory. Second is thread. A lightweight, smaller unit of a process that shares memory. A process can have multiple threads running in parallel. Now let's come to the next question. What is multi-threading and why is it used? Multi-threading allows multiple threads to run concurrently within the same process. So it is used for better CPU utilization, improving applications, responsiveness, efficient background tasks. Now let's jump to the next question. What is concurrency in programming? Concurrency enables multiple parts of a program to execute independently, handling multiple tasks simultaneously. So, if we talk about the example, then web servers handling multiple user requests, background task example data fetching in UI, asynchronous programming example JavaScript event loop. Okay. Now let's come to the next question. What is a race condition and how can it be avoided? A race condition occurs when multiple threads processes, access and modify shared data simultaneously, leading to unpredictable results. Example, two threads updating a counter at the same time without proper synchronization. Now, how to avoid race conditions? Okay, so first is locks, mutexes, and semaphores ensures only one thread modifies data at a time. Second is atomic operations. It ensures an operation completes as a single unit. Third one is thread synchronization. Use thread safe structures, example Java's synchronized or Python's threading lock. Now friends, let's come to the next question. What's the difference between blocking and non-blocking input-output? Blocking input-output, the program waits until the operation completes before proceeding. While non-blocking input-output, the program does not wait, it continues execution while waiting for the input-output operation. Now let's come to the next question. What's the difference between synchronous and asynchronous input-output? Okay. Synchronous input-output, the operation runs in sequence, blocking execution until completion, and asynchronous input-output, the operation runs in the background, notifying the program when done. Next question is, what is a socket in networking? A socket is an endpoint for sending and receiving data across a network. It allows communication between two applications over the internet. Example, a web browser connecting to a web server. So, types of sockets: TCP sockets, reliable, connection-oriented communication. UDP sockets, faster, connection-less communication. So friends, if you have any problem, you can ask me in the comment section, okay? So now let's come to the next question. What is the OSI model and what are its layers? The OSI, Open System Interconnection Model, is a standard framework for network communication. There are 7 layers of the OSI model. First one is physical layer, hardware, cables, network card. Second is data link layer, MAC addresses, Ethernet. Third is network layer, IP addressing, routing, example routers. Fourth is transport layer, TCP, UDP, port numbers. Fifth one is session layer, manages communication sessions. Sixth is presentation layer, data encryption, compression. And seventh is application layer, user applications, HTTP, FTP, DNS. Now friends, let's come to the next question. What is TCP/IP and how does it work? TCP/IP, Transmission Control Protocol, Internet Protocol, is the foundation of internet communication. So how it works? It ensures reliable, ordered, and error-check delivery of data, example web browsing, emails. And IP handles addressing and routing packet across networks. So let me give you an example. Think when you visit a website, TCP/IP breaks the data into packets, send them to the destination and reassembles them. Now let's come to the next question. What's the difference between TCP and UDP? Okay. So let me tell you features. Okay. So in TCP, the type is connection oriented and in UDP, the type is connectionless. If we talk about the reliability, then in TCP, reliable, ensured delivery, and in UDP, it is unreliable, no guarantee. If we talk about the speed, then in TCP, it is slower, handshake, error checking, while in UDP, it is faster. Okay. So let's talk about some use cases of both. So in TCP, web browsing, email, file transfer, and in UDP, video streaming or online gaming. Next question we have, what is a DNS, domain name system, and what does it do? DNS translates human readable domain names, example google.com, into IP address 142 point something. Okay. So how does it work? You type google.com in your browser, the DNS server finds the IP address for google.com. Your browser connects to that IP address. Next question is, what is load balancing and why is it important? Load balancing distributes incoming network traffic across multiple servers to improve performance and reliability. Okay. So why is it important? First, it prevents server overload. Second, ensures high availability. And third, improves response time. So let me give you an example. If a website has 1 million users, A load balancer can distribute traffic across multiple servers to prevent slowdowns. So friends, now let's come to the question number 50 and our last question of this video. What is continuous integration and continuous deployment, CI/CD? Okay. So CI/CD automates software building, testing and deployment, ensuring faster and reliable releases. So first is continuous integration. Developers push code frequently. Automated test run ensures early bug detection. Second is continuous deployment, CD. Code is automatically deployed to production. It reduces manual intervention and it enables faster releases. Okay. So we talk about CI/CD tools. Okay. So let's have some example. First is Jenkins, GitHub Actions, GitLab CI/CD. Okay. Alright, that brings up to the end of this video. We covered a ton of important full stack developer interview questions, everything from front end and back end concepts to databases, networking, and even CI/CD. Now, if you are preparing for a full stack interview, my advice is simple. Don't just memorize these answers. Instead, try applying them in real projects, practice coding regularly, and stay updated with the new technologies. That's what will truly make a difference. And hey, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Also, let me know in the comment if you want a part 2 or if there are any topics you would like me to cover. Alright, that's it for now. Keep learning, keep coding, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.